DBL is celebrating trailblazers in Black history. We're recognizing some of the first Black Americans to break color barriers in politics. In 1972, Shirley Chisholm was not only the first Black person to run for president, she's also the first woman to run for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination. Chisholm's career in Congress ended in 1983, and she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2015.
Wow. Yeah, that is, when you talk about pushing boundaries and being a pioneer, she broke the door down. I mean, no one did it before her. And do you know how brave that has to be? Shirley Chisholm is up there with the bravest people in the world, really.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of race and race relations, there are a couple of interesting headlines that highlight just how split the country is when it comes to equity and inclusion. So Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said yesterday that he's going to ban all state universities from spending money on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. He called the programs discriminatory. This comes after the state stopped high schools from teaching AP African American Studies classes, but on the other hand, in New York, one university system announced it's making a new racial equity class mandatory for all students in order to graduate. So why does there seem to be such a big divide when it comes to this topic? And what do you think of these classes and initiatives? Should they be mandatory or are they discriminatory? Erica. I couldn't even say that because I don't believe it, but Erica.
Yeah, I think we all understand, well, I think many of us understand that this is a discriminatory just situation, period. And it's meant to, actually, you know what? I'm not even going to speculate what it's meant to do. I am going to pontificate about what it's actually going to do.
What it is going to do, right.
Because it's interesting that we live in a country that, according to census projections in the year 2045, there will be a majority minority, meaning that people who identify as white will fall at less than 50% of the population. And here we have in Florida, DeSantis proposing that we stop teaching history that will affect not only the majority minority, but also just affects us as an entire nation. And there is going to be a disparity because we're talking about from state to state, meaning children born today will go through a system where they aren't as educated on what has happened in our country and what's happening in our world as their counterparts in other states. So now you have a situation where parents have to make a decision whether it's important to them that their child is well versed on the way that the world works. So it really isn't of any benefit to any child that's coming up in that system, and ignorance isn't any benefit to anyone who lives on this planet.
Thank you, Erica. And how is that going to help race relations? If you don't have the knowledge to inspire empathy, how are you supposed to evoke change?
He's not trying to evoke change.
I'm saying for the average student, right?
I think what the average student should do is maybe turn on some old black and white videotapes about how they handled change on campuses in the late 60s, early 70s.
Kent State?
Your presence at that university, the athletes that fund these universities, you have power too. They're not going to talk about it because they don't want you to know about it. But some walkouts, a bunch of protests, maybe some football players not showing up, maybe some basketball players not coming out for the second half. Guys, these schools are all imaginary. Florida is just a bunch of buildings in the middle of a swamp. No disrespect. That's where it is. It's called the swamp where they play. The people that make up these schools, the athletes that give name to these schools, would you know the difference between Notre Dame and Arizona if it wasn't for sports? The people that go there are what make these institutions important. And when they understand that they have all the sway. And DeSantis can say whatever he wants, but he can't control the classes if no one's in there.
That's a good point about protesting and who would be the best person to protest. I just have to say this. There's a quote that I really believe in. The road to fascism is lined with people telling you to stop overreacting. Now it's AP African American Studies. Now if you look on TikTok and Instagram, they're getting rid of all the books in Florida schools. Burning books, getting rid of books, sound somewhat familiar in a fascist way from maybe World War II. I am not overreacting when I say read banned books. Find them, read them. They are important. They are important because they are being banned. What's in them they're trying to protect? Future thought, future ideas about race and culture. That's what they're preventing you from reading. My school had a course only on banned books. We could only read banned books. To Kill a Mockingbird, Fahrenheit 451, Catcher in the Rye, classic American novels. Read banned books.
Where are all the freedom people now?